In old country of Schlupska, I am ditch digger. As far as jobs in Schlups go, the greenbaums, and we have American dream. I find good job in pickle factory. Sarah, one day, everything changed. The world has changed. Everyone I know is gone.
Where are they? They passed away. It was a car crash. He will tell me everything of their deaths, how their bodies died, their faces as the life left. We will bond over our pain.
You have no wife, no children, dude, no friends, no job. You need help. I'm fine.
Yet you have captivated the hearts of the entire world.
Probably not best case scenario for what the family's become. Is this your father? No, that's David Bowie. Is this your mother? No, that's also David Bowie. That whole poster's David Bowie.
The events take place in Eastern Europe in 1919. A Jewish man named Herschel Greenbaum is digging a ditch and breaks his shovel. Things have not been going well lately. Herschel's life is not easy. But one day everything changed. At the market, Herschel saw a beautiful woman named Sarah and began to court her. However, Sarah was clearly not interested in him. Herschel decided to win Sarah's affection at all costs and began to work even harder. And one day the woman reciprocated his feelings. From that moment on, the lovers were inseparable. Sometimes when they wanted to be away from everyone, they came to a special swamp and told each other all their hopes and dreams. Sarah confessed that her greatest wish in the world was to become so rich that she could afford to put a monument on her grave. Herschel's dreams were simpler: to try seltzer water. He believed that if he and Sarah were together, all their hopes would come true. Soon they got married. The wedding was full of people when suddenly the town was attacked by Cossacks. Herschel and Sarah were among the few who survived. After that, the couple decided to move to America. Herschel found a job at a pickling factory, but he was not allowed to knead salt or even sort cucumbers. Herschel's job was to run after rats with a club. Many things were still out of reach for Herschel and Sarah. For example, seltzer water. But Herschel worked hard and fulfilled Sarah's dream, buying a beautiful family plot in the cemetery for the two of them. Soon Sarah became pregnant. One day Herschel swore to his wife that their family would be successful, and after 100 years, everyone would know their surname. The couple did not suspect that a tragic incident would destroy all their plans for life. When Herschel was chasing rats, he accidentally fell into a vat of pickled cucumbers, but no one noticed. On the same day, the factory was confiscated and closed. 100 years passed. One day, two teenagers who had lost their quadcopter snuck into the abandoned factory building and opened one of the vats. When Herschel emerged from it, they screamed and ran away. Later, scientists spoke to the press about this amazing incident. It is likely that the brine preserved Herschel in perfect condition. 100 years have passed, but he has not aged a bit. Herschel is very sad. The world has changed and his beloved wife passed away 80 years ago. Soon the scientist informed Herschel of good news. They had managed to find his relative, a great-grandson. He lives here, in Brooklyn. Herschel was very excited and happy because he had family. Soon Herschel met Ben, who looked very much like him. Ben invited the new relative to his home. Once outside, Herschel couldn't recognize the streets.
Anyway, I can't wait to show you, the future.
When a taxi arrived, he was scared, but Ben calmed him down by saying that cars were ubiquitous. Ben brought Herschel into his apartment. The man couldn't believe that all of this belonged to his great-grandson. In the past, even a whole family couldn't afford such living space. Ben told his great-grandfather that he could stay as long as he wanted. Herschel was shocked to learn that seltzer water was now widely available. Moreover, Ben drinks it every day. The homeowner asked the artificial intelligence to play retro music. Herschel didn't understand where the music was coming from and how it all worked. Later, the men took a walk around the city streets. It was a complete shock for Herschel that interracial marriages were now commonplace. Herschel gradually adapted to his new life. It was strange to him that Ben had 7 pairs of shoes and more than 20 pairs of socks. Before, the common man could not afford such a thing. Ben told Herschel about his work. It turned out that he was a mobile application developer. Herschel didn't understand what it meant. He still couldn't use smartphones and other gadgets, not knowing what it was for. Ben plans to sell his app in the future to start a new chapter in his life. Herschel asks the great-grandson to show family photos. Ben brought him an album. Seeing his wedding photo, Herschel couldn't hold back tears. There was also a photo of his son Mort, whom Sarah gave birth to soon after her husband disappeared. On the next page, Herschel saw a photo of his grandson David and Ben with his parents. It turned out they died in a car accident. Herschel suggests to his great-grandson to go to the cemetery to honor the memory of their relatives, but the latter is not enthusiastic about the idea. Herschel was puzzled when he learned that Ben was not religious. In Ben's opinion, religion was pulling humanity backward. Herschel could not comprehend this. Ben took his great-grandfather to the cemetery after all. Herschel was upset to see that this cemetery was abandoned. Moreover, Ben had not visited his family's graves for many years. Sarah also rests here. Looking at the monument, Herschel couldn't hold back his tears and began to pray. An advertisement for vodka was placed nearby. This reminded Herschel of the Cossacks, who were the bitterest enemies of the Jews. He thought that one of the builders was a Cossack, as he directly associated vodka with them. Herschel got into a fight. Ben tried to stop him but failed. Eventually they were both arrested. Ben posted bail, so they were released. Herschel intends to get the Cossacks to remove that banner. Ben explained that the Cossacks were not involved, and the advertisement belonged to a huge company. Herschel doesn't understand why the great-grandson doesn't want to defend his family's honor. But Ben is too busy developing his mobile app. Besides, he has a meeting with an investor coming up. However, during the meeting, the partners said that they were refusing to invest him. The thing is, the day before they Googled Ben's name, and the first thing that came up was his arrest. It's bad for the company's image. Upon returning home, Ben expressed his dissatisfaction with Herschel, who in turn suggested opening a pickle factory. According to Herschel, it's an excellent business. Of course, Ben thought it was a bad idea. He also said that it was good that Sarah had passed away, otherwise she would have been ashamed of her husband. Hearing this, Herschel gave his great-grandson a promise. He would open a pickle factory, earn $200,000, buy out the Cossacks' land, and remove that banner. First thing, Herschel went to the store to buy cucumbers, but he had nothing to pay with. When he found cucumbers and salt in the dumpster, he was happy. He also found other necessary things to start his business. Soon Herschel pickled his first batch of cucumbers and went to sell them in the city center. Two young men approached him and were immediately interested in the natural products. That's how Herschel earned his first $4. He also asked the customers to return the jar later. The guys decided that they must tell everyone about it. Ben's life continues as usual. He comes across articles about his arrest on the internet. To drown his sorrow, Ben goes to a bar. From a guy he learns that Herschel has become a famous person thanks to his cucumbers. His activity is covered by a popular blogger on the internet. Herschel's cucumbers taste disgusting, but he has no shortage of customers. Ben tries to come up with an idea for a new app, while Herschel becomes increasingly famous. His video has millions of views. In one of the videos, Herschel addressed his great-grandson, calling him a fool. To get back at his great-grandfather, Ben called the health department, saying that Herschel uses dirty jars and rainwater for his products. The next day, representatives from the health department visited Herschel, accusing him of selling food prepared in unsanitary conditions. Besides, Herschel now owes $12,000 in taxes and fines. And until he pays off the debt, he has no right to trade. Ben was happy that his revenge plan worked. Meanwhile, bloggers suggested that Herschel find assistants to expand his business. They should be people who want to gain experience, but won't demand a salary. Surprisingly, there were many volunteers. Under Herschel's guidance, the staff began pickling cucumbers in jars from the dumpster. Meanwhile, Ben wrote to the investor that he had a fantastic idea for selling his app. The guy was not happy to learn that Herschel's business was successful again. Moreover, Ben received a rejection from the investor, who wrote that they had already bought another app. Herschel was counting his money, with which he soon bought the cemetery plot. Herschel believes he won, but the next morning he felt sad again. Ben's parents, Susan and David Greenbaum, whom he does not visit, are buried in the same cemetery. Meanwhile, Ben saw an article about Herschel on the internet. In the photo, the guy recognized his former investor. This made his resentment towards his relative even stronger. Ben turned on a video of his graduation. His parents talked about how proud they were of him and believed he would succeed. Ben feels like he let them down. There was a knock on the door. Herschel brought the ad banner and said that he taught the Cossacks a lesson and restored justice. Herschel also announced that he wanted to help his great-grandson, who has no wife, no children, and no business. However, Ben tried to drive away his relative, saying that he was happy before his appearance. But at some point, Ben had an insidious idea and asked Herschel if he wanted to register on Twitter, where he would write his thoughts in a very expressive form. To prove to his great-grandson that he was capable of this, Herschel immediately asked his assistant Clara to register him on Twitter and post some provocative posts to advertise his cucumbers. Some of the posts were highly offensive and violated the rights of the disabled and women. The next morning, an angry crowd gathered around Herschel. His assistant Clara immediately joined the protesters. On the internet, Herschel became the target of hate. People considered him a fanatic and madman. However, some people did support Herschel's ideas. Once, he was invited to a TV show and asked how he dared to openly express such provocative things. Herschel only replied that he did not understand what was happening right now. Many people found a philosophical subtext in his words. Ben's hatred towards Herschel grew stronger, as the great-grandfather achieved what he could not, became a world-famous person. Soon there will be debates between Herschel and a well-known public figure. Ben bought a ticket to attend. During the debate, Herschel openly declared that women were created to do only what men say. He presented compelling arguments in favor of his position. The audience erupted in thunderous applause. Everyone wants Herschel to run for the council. Suddenly disguised Ben asked Herschel a religious question. The man didn't notice the catch. His answer displeased the audience, and the angry crowd chased after him for a long time. Herschel was hiding behind the trash bins. The news announced that the government intended to revoke his citizenship and deport from the country. A reward was offered for any information on the whereabouts of the illegal foreigner. Herschel broke into Ben's house, asking to help him escape to Canada. Herschel had no idea that Ben was responsible for all his troubles. Ben eventually agreed to take the great-grandfather to Canada on the condition that he would never appear in his life again. They set off on their journey the next morning, using roads without checkpoints and people. To Ben's surprise, the great-grandfather showed concern for him throughout the trip. Finally, their journey came to an end. On the road, the men saw a police car, so they decided to hide. Herschel thought again of Sarah. He also expressed hope that his great-grandson would someday come to Canada to visit him. Herschel was surprised when Ben suggested they go back and figure out how to make things right together. At that moment, Ben admitted to Herschel that it was his fault that his life was ruined. Ben apologized but received a punch in response. Their scolding caught the attention of the police, who immediately chased after Herschel. He hid and shaved off his beard, and later identifying himself as Ben Greenbaum to the officers and showing them his great-grandson's passport as proof. The police, who were misled, mistakenly arrested Ben, thinking he was Herschel Greenbaum. This was reported on all the news channels. At the trial, the lawyer claimed that the real Herschel was actually free, and Ben Greenbaum was in the courtroom. However, nobody believed this argument. Ben was deported to Eastern Europe. Herschel saw this on the news. He went to his great-grandson's apartment and took out the album of family photos. On one of the pages, Herschel found a child's drawing by Ben, who loved his parents very much, as reflected in the name of his app. Ben found himself in a poor Jewish village where almost no one speaks English. He has no money or roof over his head. The only place where Herschel can stay overnight is the church. An old man asked him to participate in a requiem prayer. Although Ben is not religious and does not know the prayer, he agrees. At that moment, he cannot hold back his tears, thinking about the parents. Suddenly Ben saw Herschel, who felt sorry for how he treated his great-grandson so harshly. They are both guilty before each other. Herschel handed Ben his childhood drawing, proving that he had been thinking about his family all these years. In the morning, Herschel showed his great-grandson the same swamp where Sarah used to love to visit. However, now it's all polluted by industry. Ben proposed a family business to Herschel. They forgave each other and agreed to act together from now on. Sometime later, Herschel and Ben came to the cemetery,